All right, you heard the comments. We have brought together a very special panel tonight to talk about the president's speech. Dan Savage is an author and columnist. He is in Seattle tonight. Hilary Rosen is in Miami. She is a CNN political contributor. Michelangelo Signorile joins us from Washington, an activist and talk show host on Sirius XM radio. And then there's Dan Choi. He is also in the nation's capital tonight, a graduate of the U.S. Military Academy and the spokesman for Nights Out, a group of gay and lesbian alumni of West Point. Thanks. Good to see all of you. Michelangelo and Dan, both of you in the room. Dan, I'll start with you. When he talked about don't ask, don't tell, promising to abolish it, repeal it, what did you think?
Well, a lot of people would... Oh.
Sorry, I didn't know which Dan you were talking to.
Oh, sorry, no. Daniel Choi, he was in the room, in military.
Well, a lot of people would hear a promise, and they would say that that's something that we could hold them to. You know, as a military person, I would say that that was what we call a warning order. He's essentially saying that he will end Don't Ask, Don't Tell, not change Don't Ask, Don't Tell, not find ways to execute Don't Ask, Don't Tell against jilted lovers. He said
that he would end it. Here's a question,
right,
though, and I'll give the other Dan since you jumped in. Dan Savage, the question that I've been getting through emails and on Twitter is, okay, so he said this before. I want to see a timeline. When is it going to happen?
He didn't say anything tonight that he didn't say during the campaign when he was candidate Obama. Watching his speech tonight, I thought, oh, this is great. This is awesome. And I don't want to discount the symbolism of him going before HRC's annual big dinner as president and making this speech. But there was nothing new here. He promised to end it before he was elected. Well, now he's elected president. We want a timeline. We want to see some action. And he could end it right now with a stop-loss order, just like Janet Napolitano has suspended enforcement of the widow's penalty. He has the authority. 78 members of Congress sent him a letter asking him right now to stop the enforcement of Don't Ask, Don't Tell while they work on a solution in Congress, and he hasn't.
Okay, we're going to get the guys out of the way, and we'll give Hillary the last word in all of this. So I'm going to go now to Michelangelo Signorile. Michael, you were in the room as well. What was the reaction in the room on Don't Ask, Don't Tell? Did people say, when is he going to do it? He could, do they share Dan Savage's sentiments?
Well, I got to tell you, I wasn't in the room. I almost was in the room, but they locked down the auditorium before I could get there.
Secret Service got you, huh?
I did watch it all, though. I got back to my hotel, watched it on television. And, look, it was an inspirational speech. I know the people in the room excited to see the president there. They all went there to listen to him. And he really roused them. And he does that great. He did it during the campaign. But I agree with Dan completely. Nothing new. It was a great speech for February. We needed now, after the loss of faith, because he has dragged his feet and has not really spoken this way, we really needed to see something concrete, something of a timeline on Don't Ask, Don't Tell. He really just didn't even mention the Defense of Marriage Act. And we wanted to hear him speak out against these attacks on us. Up in Maine, there is a ballot measure. He needed to speak out against that ballot measure that's taking away the right to marry.
Well, Michael, on that, and Hillary, you're going to jump in here, but, this was taught, Don't Ask, Don't Tell, DOMA and whatever. But there were other things that he talked about, employment discrimination, hate crime legislation, or what have you. There were other things that he did talk about. But Hillary, just speaking to you, you and I were talking before the show, you don't necessarily agree with these guys. You think, give him more time, right?
I agree with Dan Choi, which is he was speaking as commander-in-chief tonight, not as a candidate. He's the president, and he said he has been talking to the generals. We know from the generals and their reports that they are undergoing planning. It's not for them to tell us what day they're going to execute that plan. And I wish he had done a stop-loss, but guess what? The military folks working on this issue have asked him not to do a stop-loss. They want legislation because they don't want a future president being able to undo it. So the gay community is very patient here, and it bothers me that there's an enormous amount of division here being
you said
expressed
very patient,
that just
or did you
doesn't
mean,
really exist.
Did you say patient or impatient? What did you mean by that?
I think that the gay community is patient. This is not a single issue. We've asked him to repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell. We've asked him to pass hate crimes. We've asked him to stop employment discrimination. We've asked him to repeal the Defense of Marriage Act. This is a heavy load, and already in the first 9 months we have seen progress on several of those things. Look, 4 years ago, President Bush stood before the country and tried to write us out of the Constitution. And guess what? He was reelected. So the idea that this is not a complete sea change and that we should not take this guy at his word for what we've seen, to me, is mind-boggling.
What do you think of that, Dan Savage, that, maybe the gay community should be a little bit more patient and give the administration time to do these things? Because if you think about it, what group or bloc wants so many things done so soon? Defense of Marriage Act, Don't Ask, Don't Tell, employment discrimination, and on and on. Do you think that the gay community should be a little bit more patient, possibly?
No, I think we should be as impatient as the fierce urgency of now implies. People being thrown out of the military now, including Dan Choi. We didn't ask President Obama to do all these things. President Obama, as candidate Obama, promised to do all of these things and has not done anything except give the same campaign speech over and over and over
again.
But
by the same token, the big marches
there's
tomorrow.
There's a law that's going to be signed next week.
Yeah.
That
a law that
Bush
should have
vetoed.
a law that is 10 years old, a bill that is 10 years old, long
That's
overdue.
Right. That's how long it took. That just shows that these are not slam dunk.
I understand what you're saying, but is that necessarily the Obama
laws.
administration's fault that these laws haven't been passed within the couple of months of his administration? From what he said tonight, it appears that he is making some progress. So why blame the Obama administration
we're not
for
seeing
10
progress.
years?
Look, it is about right now. We have the biggest majority in the Congress we're going to get in terms of Democrats supporting LGBT rights and a Democratic president. It is about now. It has to happen now. He is somebody who is, speaking to the Human Rights Campaign, which accepts this incrementalist approach. Hillary is on the board of HRC. I understand why she is on board with that, but really the grassroots and what's happening tomorrow, the National Equality March, people are really saying to him, you need to come forward with what you promised during the campaign.
I want to talk to you about that because, you got a very interesting soundbite from someone about that march saying that, it really doesn't mean anything. And I'm talking about Barney Frank, who is openly gay.